Okay, so recording, let me check. Yes, so welcome to the last lecture for this module. So today we're going to talk about the last lab set available, which is populating the cloud. And I'll do a bit of a recap on everything that you need to expect for the next 4 weeks. So we have 4 weeks, including this one, remaining in the teaching block. The 3 weeks that are coming will be pure working weeks for you in the lab. So you can come in the lab and you can essentially work on the last lab sheet, populating the cloud. And then the 4th week will be assessment. So what you need to do is you need to have your logbooks ready and complete by the morning of the Thursday, the 12th of May. So you need to come into the lab with your logbook available. If it's in a Google Doc, you can show it to me on your normal computer screen. If you have it in a Word document or anything else, you can also just bring your laptop with you and just show me basically the work that you've done, your logbook, as you have it ready. What the assessment will be in the class is you need to come to class in your normal allocated lab slot, and you need to start up any virtual machines that you might have running. That will include your VMware, VirtualBox, and OpenNebula virtual machines. Some of you will have run out of space, and I will have asked you to delete your VMware virtual machines. Okay, so if that has happened, then that's fine. All you need to do is basically show me the logbook. I made sure that everybody that I asked to delete virtual machines from VMware or VirtualBox, they had screenshots for them on the logbooks already. And I will need to see your OpenNebula running. Basically, if you just log into your OpenNebula, and I will just navigate, look at your networks, look at your virtual machines and everything that's running to check the status of your OpenNebula installation. Robert, I just said 12th of May. So once you come into the class, I will check my list that you have been in the class and that you have been assessed there. And then the logbook deadline itself is at 5 o'clock on that Thursday, the 12th of May. So at 11:59, so midnight of Thursday night. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that A, you come to the class, you come to the lab, so that I assess you, so that I see your work in the lab, and B, that you submit your logbook on the Turnitin submission inbox that I have created now, and it is available on the module on Moodle. If you go to assessments, you'll see that there's a submission inbox for the logbook in there. Okay, I would prefer that the logbook be in PDF format because it makes it easier for me to actually read it when I'm looking at it on the browser. Please make sure, no, there is no similarity in Turnitin because of the way that the logbook is structured with the screenshot and everything else. There's no point in me doing this, so I don't. So there is no Turnitin, and you don't need to worry about similarity score. Okay. I manually Turnitin them. So if I look at something that seems familiar, I will try to find the other logbook that the screenshots look like. And if I see lots of similarities, then yes, I will do the 2 logbooks for plagiarism. It's happened in the past, not too much, but every year I get a couple of daredevils. But you need to remember that I mark all of the logbooks in one go, and I see all of them on one go, plus all your network settings and everything, computer names, usernames, everything must be exactly spot on. If I see something weird, if I see a username that doesn't look like you, it should be yours. If you're supposed to be VM9 and you have a screenshot of VM10, then yes, that will get you in trouble with me. Okay, so there are certain markers for me for plagiarism that I look for when I mark the logbooks. There are things, attract my attention. So that's basically how I do it. Okay, so you need to submit your logbooks by midnight on that Thursday, the 12th of May. The actual deadline is 11:59, as it says there. If you submit your logbook late after midnight of Thursday, then your work will be capped at 40%, unless you have an ECF, a valid ECF form for the unit, in which case you'll have 2 more weeks or 10 working days to submit your logbook. you need both things in order to get a mark. You need to both attend the class and submit the logbook. If you come to class but don't submit the logbook, you will get 0%. If you submit the logbook but you haven't come to class, you will get 0%. So either way, if one of the two items is missing, either you were not in the lab or you didn't submit the logbook, then that will be considered as a non-submission. Robert, yeah, check something wrong with your computer probably. Anyway, this is recorded, so don't worry about it too much. Yeah. So those are basically the rules about the logbook. Don't forget, you can ask me to give you some feedback on them. I've done 2 or 3 over the Easter break, and the closer we get to the deadline, I would expect more of you to actually complete your logbooks. Remember, you don't actually need to complete your logbooks to send them to me so that I give you some feedback on them. You can just send them to me with the first 2 or 3 labs is complete, and I will tell you if you're on the right path or if it's something that you drastically need to change on your logbook structure, format, and so on. Okay. So that's that. The exam for this module is timetabled. I think it's the 2nd week of the exam period. I don't remember exactly the date when it is, but you need to prepare for it as well. So thank you, Geraldine, 30th of May. So yeah, that sounds like 2nd week. And there will be some example questions in the on Moodle made available soon, so that you know what to expect from the exam. It will be 50 questions, duration will be 1 hour. They're very quick and relatively easy questions, one-liners. I'm not going to ask you to write a whole paragraph or text or anything like that. Multiple choice, multiple response. The more difficult ones are really the fill in the gap type questions. So, you know, it will probably be some command. If you know the command, you know it. If you don't know the command, you can look it up, because don't forget, this is an open book exam. So because it will be in an exam center and because you cannot actually have your logbooks with you, you'll be allowed to bring a double-sided A4 sized piece of paper with you, and you can write anything on it. Okay, so A4, front and back, you can write any commands that you're uncertain with and everything else. Then that's it, you can have it with you and you can get some help from that. So the last lab sheet that we have to do. The last lab sheet is titled Populating the Cloud. Okay, and the purpose of this is to actually create your cloud as you want it to be. So it is a lab sheet that is basically more free than the rest of the lab sheets in the sense that there isn't a specific list of tasks, methodology, and everything else for you to follow. Okay, I will give you the general guidelines of what I'm expecting you to complete for this lab sheet, and then you can do that in whichever way you like. All right, so you're supposed to create a cloud. The cloud will be a small cloud for the use of the School of Computing in the university. Your cloud should contain a virtual data center called SOC, School of Computing, and that virtual data center should have its own admin user, so one user that is one level below the one admin user of the cloud available on your computer, and a group of lecturers and a group of students. You will need to have a server in your cloud. At bare minimum, I would like that server to be a file server, and it should be able to provide file transfer between the two groups, between the lecturers and the students. So the minimum requirement for this is that you have one server, which is going to be called VM1, and that will be the server that will provide all of the services in your cloud. You need to have, and then you need to have 2 types of clients for your network. You need to have a lecturer client and you need to have a student client. Now, details onto these are whether the contents on the computers on the client should be saved or not, how much customization the users can actually create on them, and so on. I will leave this up to you. The general details are this. So you should have a VM1, that should be the server. I would like it to be a Linux server, but depending on how far you want to go with this with this lab sheet or what you want to do, you could even build a Windows server. Okay, if you want to have a Windows server with Active Directory, providing central authentication, user management, central, support for all the folders, the user accounts, and everything else, then by all means, please go ahead. I would love to see that. You can use Linux. You can use any flavor of Linux you like. Okay, you can use CentOS, you can use Ubuntu, you can use Kali, you can use Mint, whatever you like, whatever you're familiar with. I don't really mind. I would like the server to be on VMnet 30. Okay, and so I would like that file server to be on 148.1.7.30 something. So whatever IP address you have available for your network, on network 30, I would like it to be there. At the bare minimum, it needs to be a file server. So the easiest way, for example, to do that in Linux would be through NFS. Okay, there's not really that much for you to configure with this. Simple Google search will come up with what you need. You can also configure other services on it, such as central authentication via LDAP, anything else that you might like. Sky's the limit. If you want to set it up as a DNS server, if you want to do anything else, then by all means do it. I'll be happy with it. Okay, this server should be accessible by all the virtual machines in the cloud and by the host itself as well. Right. Once the server is built, I would like you to have a machine called VM2, which will be the lecturer client. So this will need to be a Linux client, but you can make it something else as well if you like, or whatever flavor of Linux you like. And this should be available for the use by your lecturers group of users in your cloud. You can build a VM with CentOS or anything else. You can even download the VM from the marketplace if you like. Okay, you need to give it access on VMnet 31 and call it, let's call it a VML, so virtual machine for the lecturer. And you should be able to get access to all of the services provided by the server. Very important that only lecturers must have access to this VM, and multiple instances of it should be able to run. Okay. Finally, you should have a VM3, which should be a student client. You will need to create a VM that you will supply for your student accounts. The purpose of this VM will be for it to be available to the student accounts you have created, and it will need to be able to run in multiple instances again. So, this basically means that it should be non-persistent, and it will need to have at the bare minimum a GUI for them to use. So maybe a workstation installation or a GNOME desktop type in CentOS is recommended. This should connect on VMnet 32 and should be called VMS. So VM student 1, VM student 2, VM student 3, and so on. Okay. You should also have access to any services that you provide to the network, of course. Okay. And the two different clients shouldn't really have access between them. So from a lecturer's virtual machine, you should be able to have access to a student's virtual machine and vice versa. Okay. So the bare minimum requirements for these machines are these. So you can use whatever operating system you like. You can use, I would like them to be on 3 different networks, so 3 different types of computers, 3 different networks. And once you get those 3 basic virtual machines running, and they have the basic operation between them, so you can get a basic client-server interaction with a file server. As far as I'm concerned, the lab sheet is complete. Okay, you will get the full marks that the lab sheet has to offer. However, if you want to score some extra marks, you can progress this more. You can advance more on this lab sheet. So you can create multiple instances of the lecturers and of the students' virtual machines. If you do that, bear in mind, you need to be careful that you will not have IP addresses to use. Okay, because we're using a /30 networking on nets 30, 31, and 32, you only have 2 IP addresses per subnet available to use. So once you have one network on the host, the net 30, net 31, and once you build up one virtual machine, then you run out of network cards, and you cannot really run multiple instances of those virtual machines. It's your cloud, you're the administrator of it, you're allowed to do whatever you want with it. Change, the network cards. Change the networks that the network cards are using. You can switch to private IP addresses as long as you can run multiple instances of your virtual machines. You can boot up your virtual machines and give them IP addresses, let's say in a 192.168, whatever you want to use, I don't mind. And of course, the only limitation would be not to use public IP addresses. So don't use 148, 197, 30 something, 31 something, and so on, because you will most likely conflict with other students in the class. If you want to have multiple instances of your lecturer or student clients, create network cards that have private IP addresses that work on a private subnet, and then sort out the networking for the virtual machines. I can tell you from now, all you need to do for private networks to go to the outside world is nothing. Network address translation. There is one IP tables command that you can use to do nothing. And once you type that command on Prometheus, then access will be given to your virtual machines to the outside world with it. Okay. You can create as many clients as you like, and you can enrich them with any features that you like. Okay, so you can create a student account, you have central management of all of the accounts, centrally managed home folders, home directories for everybody, and so on. It's really up to you. It all depends on the time that you have available. Okay, do your best. Honestly, if the module was structured in a different way, this lab sheet would have been the coursework for this module, and all of the previous lab sheets would have been the familiarization with the environment, so that it actually enables you to do this particular lab sheet. Okay, that's why the requirement, my minimum requirement of 3 VMs and 3 different types of accounts is so low. As long as you do that, I understand that you've had to do all the other labs and everything else, so you cannot really make the most out of this lab sheet as I would like to. Okay, but if you have the time and you're willing to play around, then you can expand this lab sheet as much as you like and create an as complete cloud solution as possible for your system that you're working on. Okay, so I will hit stop in the recording.